Is the result of a game. Victory at the cost of pain. Like a freight train, you're tied to the tracks.
How's it going, everyone? You got Corey here, aka MegaCrasher, and welcome back to a brand new video. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be taking a little bit more of a serious and more diplomatic approach here in this video, because this is a rather serious topic that has been discussed on and off in Pokemon Go, and that is cheating in Pokemon Go. Now, I just want to start off strong by saying that I will not be, advocating or defending cheating in any way, shape, and form, but rather I want to talk about the possible reasons why people do choose to cheat in the game, and also talk about things like terms of service and what exactly is defined as cheating in Pokemon Go. So with that being said, if I can be afforded to, please loan me a little bit of your time, because I want to make this one of the most crystal clear videos that has ever been made regarding this topic. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's begin. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so first things first, let's talk about Niantic terms of service. Now, the actual terms of service itself is a very, very long read. So what I'm going to be doing is I'll link you guys to the actual terms of service from the site itself, but we have ourselves the cheating portion of the terms of service. Like, what is defined as cheating in Pokemon Go? And that is the following: accessing services in an unauthorized manner, including using modified or unofficial third-party software. Now, they don't exactly go into detail here what that means, unofficial third-party software. They don't specify what sort of unofficial third-party software they're talking about, but I think we can put two and two together. That would be things like IV checkers / calculators. That would be things like spoofing apps, because anything that isn't endorsed by Niantic themselves, that technically counts as unofficial third-party software. Now, coming up next, we have ourselves playing with multiple accounts for the same service. So, should kind of go without saying, you're using more than one account to play Pokemon Go. We also have ourselves sharing accounts. Should kind of go without saying as well. We have ourselves using any techniques to alter or falsify a device's location. So, that in translation means GPS spoofing. And we also have ourselves selling or trading accounts. That should also go without further description here. So that right there is the Niantic terms of service as far as cheating goes in Pokemon Go. So there's no two ways about it. Cheating is wrong no matter how you splice it. However, what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be talking about the reasons why people spoof and the reasons why people choose to use multiple accounts. Now, do not get it twisted. I am not advocating or defending this in any way, shape, and form, but simply what I'm doing is highlighting the reasons why people possibly spoof and why people also use multiple accounts. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's talk about GPS spoofing. Now, I would like to open things up in this section of the video by saying that Pokemon Go isn't fair. It is definitely not a fair game for a good chunk of the player base, and the reason for that is because of the fact that when it comes to Pokemon Go, there are so many elements to it that makes the game not 100% fair to all of its players, such as exclusive events. Now, you could live in an area that is highly dense, highly populated, that gets events every now and then, like say, for example, Chicago. Chicago is the home site of Pokemon Go Fest, If you live in the Chicago area, then you're good to go. But if you don't live in the area and you have to spend money to travel, then that is one way that is not fair for Pokemon Go players. Another way that Pokemon Go isn't fair is if you live in a rural area, which means you essentially have a very, very small amount of Pokestops or gyms, and you might live in an area that is completely barren, where you don't have anything. You have hardly any spawns even, And that right there is where GPS spoofing comes into play. That's where people are thinking, well, if I GPS spoof, then that kind of takes away the unfairness when it comes to playing the game. Another reason why people GPS spoof, it could be because of the fact that they have limited mobility. So, for example, if they're on crutches, if they're using a walker, if they are in a wheelchair, and they're not able to, be able-bodied like your average Pokemon Go player, but they really want to play the game, then they might choose to spoof, so that way they can reap the same benefits as other players. Now, by same benefits, I'm talking about being actually able to play the game. Now, when you GPS spoof, you clearly have an advantage over other players because you can go anywhere in the world with a whim. All you gotta do is put in coordinates and you're there. Just like that. Now, another reason why people spoof is because maybe they want to help out their local friends in raids, but say, for example, they're not actually able to be there for whatever reason, So they themselves provide the air support to be able to fly down and to be able to help out with the raid and be able to complete the raid and therefore reap the benefits and also have their friends reap the benefits of completing that very raid. Now, another reason why people GPS spoof is because of a lack of transportation. So if you don't have a vehicle or if you don't know players that, are able to drive you just like that to where they go and normally play to farm in their game, that right there is kind of like another reason why people choose to spoof, because of the fact, especially, this kind of goes back to the rural area reason, especially if you live in a rural area and you don't have wheels to be able to go from point A to point B, then that right there is another reason why people may choose to spoof. Now, another reason could result in the weather because of the fact that, there's times where weather is not your friend. And, if you really, really want to play the game, if there's an event going on, but if you're like being rained or snowed out or something like that, then that right there is another way that people end up spoofing, is because they want to avoid the elements, if you will, from being exposed to the weather when they actually go outside. So those are just some of the possibilities as to why people spoof in Pokemon Go. Now, keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, I am not in any way, shape, and form defending or justifying this, because it is against terms of service. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's talk about the next big thing when it comes to cheating in Pokemon Go, that being the use of multiple accounts. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so now let's talk about the use of multiple accounts and the possibilities as to why people use multiple accounts. Now, one of the reasons why people may use multiple accounts has to do with the fact that it could save them money when it comes to them doing raids, because as we all know, you only get one free pass a day per account, and raiding with premium passes can get pretty costly, especially if you are a hardcore raider. So what happens if you have multiple accounts? Well, the thing is that you have more free passes to take advantage of. So therefore, it lowers down the cost of overall spending on raid passes. So another possible reason as to why people have multiple accounts may come from the fact that they want to be on the same team as one of their friends. So say, for example, you have an account, you started off as Instinct, but you have a close friend or family member that is on Team Valor. Well, wait a second now, I want to be on the same team as that person. What do I do? Well, here's the thing, is that I do understand that they have introduced the team-changing medallion, but it's 1,000 coins, so you might not want to spend 1,000 coins for the sake of changing your team, where you could very easily make a second account and be on the same team as your close friend and or family member, and, play together in that way. So another possible reason as to why people use multiple accounts is because it has to do with raiding. Now, it is a known fact that the more accounts you have at a raid, the higher the chances of you being able to defeat the raid boss and therefore reap the benefits of doing exactly that. Now, also the bonus benefit when it comes to having more accounts when it comes to raiding is you have a higher chance of obtaining either a high IV Pokemon or a 100% IV Pokemon that you in fact defeated in the raid battle. Another reason has to do with trading, which is a more recent implementation when it comes to a feature in the game. Now, the thing is that if you don't have friends to trade with in Pokemon Go, but you have multiple accounts and multiple devices, you can easily trade amongst yourself and farm for high IV, lucky Pokemon, etc. Another reason why people have multiple accounts, it kind of goes hand in hand with spoofing. So say, for example, if you are using a map that tells you of a 100 IV Pokemon that has a chance to be shiny, then say if you have 5 accounts, you have have 5 chances of finding that 100 IV Pokemon to be shiny, provided that Pokemon has its shiny form released. Now, another reason why people have multiple accounts, this kind of goes hand in hand with an earlier reason when it comes to raiding. So, say if you live in an area where there is little to no activity when it comes to players in Pokemon Go, but you have enough accounts and enough manpower to be able to solo any raids. And by solo, I'm talking about one personing a raid, but say if you have like 5 or 6 devices or something like that, and you're able to take down legendary Pokemon. Well, see, that right there is another reason why people would have multiple accounts. So that way, relying on other people is out of the question, and they can rely on themselves and their own skill set to be able to take on and defeat that legendary raid boss. Now, with great power comes an even greater responsibility. When it comes to the likes of GPS spoofing, when it comes to the likes of the use of multiple accounts, you have power over your average Pokemon Go player, and that right there is something that definitely should not be bragged about and or abused. But unfortunately, there are players out there that don't exactly have the best personality. Now, I always say, it's not exactly about how you play the game, it is about the player's personality. Now, you could be 100% clean, 100% legitimate, or you could spoof, you could use multiple accounts, and you could be the nicest person in the world. And alternatively, you can be a douchebag about it, you know, whether you choose to spoof, whether you choose to use multiple accounts, whether you choose to go it clean. You know, it is about the personality of that person when it comes to playing Pokemon Go. Now, there are ways that people can be abusive when it comes to playing Pokemon Go, and I'm going to be going over those things right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, it should go without saying, no community is ever perfect, whether it be in the online Pokemon Go community or in your local Pokemon Go community. You're always going to have bad apples no matter how you splice it. Now, with that being said, one of the ways that you can be an abusive player in Pokemon Go would be, of course, to take advantage of the fact that if you spoof and you brag about it, you brag about all the shinies or all the 100 IV Pokemon that you end up getting to, say, a legit player who works his ass off to get where he is, and all the stuff that you show him, all of your progress, basically undermines all of that person's progress, and they feel really bad about it. So that's definitely something that you shouldn't do. Now, another way that you can be an abusive player in Pokemon Go actually goes under the multiple accounting section. Now, if you have multiple accounts, then please, for the love of God, do not fill up gyms with all of your accounts, as it takes up all of the spaces from other players. So if you are a player that has, say, 5 or 6 accounts, then put only one of your accounts in that gym, so that way 5 other players will be able to fill in those slots as well, as it definitely is unfair to be able to take up all the spaces in that said gym and get all of the coins for yourself. Now, alternatively to what I just mentioned, another way that you can be an abusive player is if you were to target and harass people who technically break the guidelines and the terms of service. Do not take it upon yourself to have that sort of justice. You know, don't name out people and publicly shame and humiliate them, because that actually also goes against terms of service as well. So essentially, you are being kind of hypocritical when it comes to you screaming terms of service, yet you end up breaking terms of service yourself by being a bully to that player who is breaking terms of service. If you have that much of a problem with people who spoof or use multiple accounts, then send a private email to Niantic, and don't go out of your way to witch hunt players and name them out and publicly shame and humiliate them. Strive to be a better person for your community, you know? If you spoof, great. If you use multiple accounts, great. But the thing is don't abuse the power that you have over other players that choose to play the game the way that it is originally intended. And alternatively, if you are a legitimate player, do not go out of your way to act like you're high and mighty and act like you are better than other players. And that goes as well for people who use multiple accounts and GPS spoof. Do not act like you are high and mighty as well, as at the end of the day, it is a game, and it should be enjoyed the way that it is intended to be enjoyed. enjoyed, you know, a fun, lighthearted, whimsical game when it comes to Pokemon Go, as it is a childhood game for a lot of us older players. So ladies and gentlemen, now that we have reached this point in the video here, let's talk about if whether or not Niantic will ban cheaters in Pokemon Go. In my opinion, I don't think Niantic will ever ban cheating in Pokemon Go. The game has been active for nearly 3 years, and if they really wanted to do so, they would have done so a long time ago. And the possible reasons why they haven't full-on banned cheating in Pokemon Go is because you have people that spoof, you have people that use multiple accounts, and they are some of the most hardcore players, and we also have ourselves legit players that are some of the most hardcore players. And those hardcore players spend a lot of money, a lot of real money in the game, which essentially lines the pockets of the Niantic employees. And secondly, the Pokemon company wants to have as many players playing the game as possible. So that way it's kind of like cross-promotion, because Pokemon Go has been a game that is originally targeted towards not only kids, but also towards an older audience as well, because it started off with Generation 1 Pokemon, and a lot of us kids turned adults have started Pokemon in Generation 1. And Pokemon Go was essentially a way to reinvigorate and rekindle that love when it comes to Pokemon, because I would say that after Generation 1, maybe Generation 2, a lot of the player base had kind of dropped off and lost interest, but when Pokemon Go became a thing, a lot of those players had come back, you know? So the Pokemon company doesn't want this thing to happen. They don't want those players to be banned, because that right there is going to take away promotion and publicity from the actual Pokemon company, because of the fact that now we have ourselves Generation 8 in the works, being Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield. But that right there is just a couple of possibilities as to why Niantic hasn't fully banned cheating in Pokemon Go. So ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and let's touch base on this real quick. So this right here is their 3-strike policy. Now, the first strike is going to result in a warning, which lasts for approximately 7 days. Now, you will get a big red warning flashed upon your screen that you are forced to acknowledge upon logging in. And also, you will most likely not be able to encounter rare Pokemon in the wild. And these Pokemon may also not appear on the map or on the nearby Pokemon tracker. And in addition to that, you may be excluded from receiving new EX raid passes. Now we move on to the second strike, which is going to result in a suspension. That means that when you attempt to log in, you will get a message stating that your account is suspended, and the duration for that is approximately 30 days. Now, after that, your account will be restored. However, if you were to get a third strike, that means that your account is, in fact, permanently suspended. It is terminated. So they say that this is permanent. So this right here is something that you have to keep an eye out for, no matter how safe of a player you may be, because there are things such as glitches that has happened in the past where you have gotten warnings or suspensions or false terminations. And alternatively, if you break the rules actively, if you are a spoofer, or if you use multiple accounts, then you are putting yourself more or less at risk of getting these strikes. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so I want to give my final thoughts here real quick. Now, there's no mistaking it, you know, Pokemon Go is a very popular game, and people have their own ways of playing. Now, technically speaking, you know, you can't GPS spoof, you can't use multiple accounts, can't do this, can't do that, because it's against terms of service. However, here's the thing. If you are playing it in a way where you are not harming the experience of other players, then as far as I'm concerned, in my personal opinion, then there should really be nothing wrong. If you want to spoof, you know, if you want to spoof on your own, use multiple accounts on your own, you know, if you're playing the game for your own gain and nothing else, like if you are not doing it at the expense of other players and harming their experience in any way, shape, and form, then there really should be no problem. But that right there is just my personal opinion, and as someone who is a part-time spoofer and has multiple accounts myself, I would like to confirm the fact that the only times that I ever spoof is if there is region exclusive events. So that way, if someone is interested in a shiny Pokemon that they don't have, then I will be able to provide them with that service, and it'll be free of charge too. Give me a Pidgey or a Weedle or something like that. Well, technically it's not free because they're giving me one of their Pokemon, but it is a common Pokemon that anyone and their mother can catch. Now, with that being said, you know, that's going to be a wrap up here for this video. If there is anything that I did miss out on speaking on in this video, then please, respectfully, let me know, and I will address it in a follow-up comment. I don't plan on making another video like this unless it is absolutely necessary. If it is absolutely necessary, then I will, of course, address anything that I have missed in that follow-up video. So with that being said, guys, I say thank you guys so very much for watching. Be safe and be a positive Pokemon Go player. Don't go and bully other people. Don't be abusive, no matter if you are in a position of power or if you are spoofing or use multiple accounts. Be a positive role model, be a positive influence, and at the end of the day, enjoy the game the way that it is intended to be enjoyed, as a kid's game, a lighthearted, gentle, whimsical game, and nothing more. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Rebuild,